in coaching, there's a lot of mental, there's a lot of emotional. So you almost become somewhat as a life coach, So that's how I approach all my athletes, or I try to coach, because it's a lot more than the physical side of things. Yeah, the mental and emotional side of thing, I think it's what's really important. And I think that's what I take pride in how I coach my athletes.
Hi everyone, my name's Mael Backhausen and this is another episode of Stokely. Today I get to speak with Mathieu Doré, otherwise known as Mathieu Doré. But before we get into the episode, I'd like to take a moment to thank the traditional custodians upon the lands which this podcast was created, and I'd like to pay my respects to the elders, past, present and emerging. Mathieu Doré has been coaching people since the age of 16. That's almost half his life, and he's learnt so much from that process. It's got him into some pretty epic jobs, and it's got him to know some pretty amazing people. Mathieu Doré is the former Nike Run coach from Australia and New Zealand, and along that path, he kept things pretty real. I think if you're a business owner, if you're someone that may be thinking about getting out on your own and doing your own thing, this conversation has a lot of advice to take. And I think Matty is just a really great person at heart, and that's why he's so good at his job, as well as he's a person that we in the community of running Australia and the world as a whole is really lucky to have. So there's a lot to take away from what Matty and I chat about. It's not really all about health and fitness or hitting the gym or getting out running, because Matty's had a lot of experiences within those areas that he takes into his own life and he really uses as, personal involvement. And Matty's just a real guy, a really, really nice guy. So I really hope you can feel his energy through this conversation, and I hope this sparks a conversation that you can have with someone that you know or a stranger. So I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Let us know what you think, and thanks a lot for your time. What's happening, Matty?
How's it going?
Fantastic. How are you?
Yeah, very good, man. Very good.
Dude, you're looking clean. You're looking ready.
Yeah, I am ready. It's kind of nice to have a conversation with someone else than your wife,
Yes, well, I'm really happy to be of service, my man. We can talk about anything. That's the beauty of this conversation platform is let's go wherever you want to take it. I'm happy. Obviously you need an outlet right now.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So where are you at?
I'm actually down in Melbourne, Melbourne way at the moment. Yeah.
Cool.
The year started off pretty hectic, and then everything kind of got shut down. So I'm back down in Melbourne, kind of hanging out where I grew up actually. So yeah, it's pretty chill times. And you're up in Albury at the moment?
That's it. Good old Albury on the border.
Mm-hmm.
And we came back probably 2 weeks ago now. We were in Bali when everything was happening, and basically came back a little bit earlier than expected. We just didn't want to risk it, certainly with my visa and all that. So I was allowed to come back and home quarantine for 14 days. And we've been able to at least go run outside last Friday. So that was quite nice.
I love how your eyes light up when you say run outside.
Oh, man. Just being able to do that or go for a walk with the dogs, it's massive. That 14 days make our situation or the overall situation a lot more appreciated. Just to be able to go, walk outside or run outside or go for a bike ride is actually quite nice instead of being stuck at home all day.
Yeah, man. Because you're an active dude, and to be able to get outside is kind of your thing. You move around, you do a lot of it indoors, and you in the gym and in the workspace. But then to get outside is like your jam, and So what did you do? What did you come up with? Anything creative?
Well, the first week I came back and I was sick. Like I got the flu, which we probably thought it was probably corona, and we're like, oh man. So that made that week actually a little bit easier because like all I wanted to do was sleep and rest and like watch Netflix. So I wasn't really freaking out. It was quite nice to like not being able to work and just rest and do nothing. But then it was last week I started feeling good again, and I was kind of like, hey, I gotta do something. So I would wake up in the morning, put my alarm and just go in our little backyard. Nothing big, but I have a couple kettlebells and bands. So I would do an hour of some type of a workout, and then have a coffee, just chat with a mate over video like that, or family back home. Then have lunch, and then we hired a treadmill. So we had a treadmill delivered. So I would do like a 45-minute run on the treadmill in the afternoon. So that was kind of like my fix before we were able to head out.
Solid, man.
Yeah.
It's been amazing over the last, particularly the last week. I've seen a lot of people posting on, Facebook or Instagram, social media. They're doing like 160 kilometers around their backyard and things like that.
Yeah.
It's like, it's blowing my mind that one, like it's a great effort. Don't get me wrong. Anytime you run like doing 160 Ks any day is great. Like hats off to you. Doing 10 Ks around your backyard's great. Hats off to you. But like, why do you need to do that?
Well, that's the thing. I was having a discussion with my wife, and like, because we're not, unless you're in a country that you are restricted and you can't get out to exercise, I understand it. But yeah, it's not my cup of tea, to be honest. It's not something I would do. Like, I enjoy physical activities to be able to enjoy the outdoors, right? And since we are still able to do so, I'm like, well, why not go for a run, around the block or in my neighborhood street, or, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, there's nothing attracted to me to run around my backyard at the moment. Not for me.
Yeah,
but hats off to people that do it, because it's quite of a mental challenge. I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same, man. Like everyone does things for different reasons, and that's totally fine. Like I'm not here to judge that. I'm just more curious about that people are finding it so, maybe they're not finding it difficult to sit in their lounge rooms for a few days and not run, or it's just interesting what happens, like why people do what they do especially in times like this when a lot of their external situation is kind of delivered to them and it's final. Like, this is the situation that you need to face right now, and you can't do anything about it, really. And yeah. Hey, so Matty D, hey, mate, I don't know if I've even said thank you, but thanks a lot for sitting down with me today, mate. I know you
my pleasure.
I know you already ditched me this morning, so we had to reschedule, which is fine. Like, we're not going to go into that, and I'm all right. I've got over it now. It's been 5 hours. But
good.
But,
thanks for rescheduling.
Anytime, mate. Anytime.
At least I got a happy wife now.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Matty, there's a couple of reasons I want to speak to you, and basically because, the podcast Stokely is, the way we say it, it's a creative endeavor to make sure that we maintain the art of conversation. Very similar to communicating through the medium of writing letters, which used to be something that everyone did.
Yep.
But as technology's come into the world and the way we communicate's changed, there's definitely somewhat of an element of threat to the art of conversation and the way people communicate through conversation. So I love having a conversation with you. You've got a lot to say. You've got a lot of insight for people. And so that kind of made me want to reach out to you.
I appreciate it.
In the intro, I've given a little bit of an insight into who you are, and
Mhm.
and one of the best things is your name is actually it's like Mathieu Doré. Is that
Yeah,
good?
that's pretty good.
Yes. So anyway, I've been practicing that the last 12 hours, so I'm pretty stoked.
It's actually pretty impressive for an Australian to say it like that. Oh yeah, that's off.
But like it's brutal because everyone's like, oh yeah, Matty Doré, and it's like, dude,
Yeah,
his name is it's so not that. It's so different to
yeah.
what.
And even like Doré is quite generous. A lot of people will say Matty Dor.
Brutal, mate. Like, it's not even your name. It's like nowhere close to it. And people are just totally giving that to you over here. So, on
Yeah,
behalf of the people of this nation and the way we bastardize names, I do want to apologize.
that's all good, man. That's all good.
We're sorry. Mate, give us a little bit of a rundown on what you are doing at the moment in your life with your work, and then we'll get into a little bit more detail about how you came to be where you are right now.
Cool. Like, you want like at the moment, or like pre-corona, or like before and then now?
Yeah, that's a good point, mate. It's. I guess we have to build all that into it, but definitely pre-corona, I think is going to be more helpful. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
because it might be hard to believe, but we will get back there, mate. We will get back there.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. Yeah. So basically, I've been in Aubrey for just over a year now. Living in Australia for basically like kind of like on and off for the last 4 or 5 years. So I moved here in 2014, which has that's basically how we met. Moving here and through running and racing and even training. So yeah, how I got here, I think it's basically running got me here to where I am today. That's how I met you. That's how I met my wife. That's basically the work I do. It's all through sports and running. So being in Aubrey, as you came a few months ago, it's a small community, but a great community. I'm really enjoying it. Compared to Melbourne, Melbourne was quite big, which I loved. Melbourne, being there for 3 to 4 years, it was quite nice. But it was a kind of like a massive scale for me. Certainly working alongside Nike with the Nike Run Club, and such a big company. It was quite cool. But now being more in not a country town, but a smaller city, I guess. It's kind of like more my cup of tea, I say. Just being in that kind of community.
Yeah, I mean, it's always really interesting. I did a bit of research. Like, obviously, we're mates. I've known you for a while now, and I've got a lot of things to ask you and a lot of things to say about you without having to do much research. But when I do research on you, obviously
Mm-hmm.
the Nike Run Club coach, head coach actually of Australia and New Zealand pops up a lot. It's
Yep.
it's a pretty like solid title. It's a pretty solid job role that you had there.
Mm-hmm.
And you say like, and the way you took that in your stride, now that you say it was like pretty big scale and big thing, like what did you learn from that you thought that you then really took away after you had to kind of stop doing that role?
Yeah, like that happened so quick. Like I had to pinch myself a few times when, I got the job or I got the call to get the job. And yeah, it was just like almost like surreal. I just couldn't believe it at times, because I basically got the job, got the contract. It was a year contract to start. And I was flown to the United States and Mexico City and New York City, and did all kinds of cool stuff with them, like photo shoot and coaches meeting and all that kind of stuff, which was like coming from a small town was unreal for me. And I was quite new in Australia. That was not even. I was probably in Australia for just over a year now, so I was quite new to the community. So I'm like, wow, how did I get here, right? but yeah, I just rode the wave and, met a lot of people and just basically, I kept telling myself, I got the job not because my resume was okay, but probably just for who I am. I think, what attracted them to me and what they said, and when I got the job, it was mostly my personality and somewhat my funky accent, which, for most Australian, that French Canadian accent is very unique. Um, so, so, and that always kind of resonated, for me, and after that, I was with them for about 3 years after all. And that's kind of how I kept living, is just be yourself, and good things gonna happen, right? Because that's basically how I got the job. It's not because I was the best runner or the best coach. It's just, they took me for who I am, and that's how I keep on rolling, I guess.
So, I mean, I can absolutely say that through my experience hanging out with you and getting to know you, that you are definitely a rad person and a great guy to hang out with and to know. You've got energy that is, never fading, basically. And the way you motivate people, and I guess in the way you motivate yourself as well, through when you get out to go for a run or do exercise or just be outdoors, is just totally infectious. And when I look at it from the outside looking in, I'm just totally, Matt deserves a job like that, because he is just a ball of energy, and it's absolutely so many people could benefit from what you put out to the world. In saying that, I guess, you did a lot of run coaching, but do you still kind of classify yourself more as a health coach as well?
Yeah, I could say that. I think now, for sure with Nike, it was strictly running. But now, because I got a big strength training background as well, that's basically, what I did my university degree in human kinetics. I guess, with the running side of things and the strength training side of things, and also in coaching, there's a lot of mental, there's a lot of emotional. So you almost become somewhat as a life coach, so that's how I approach all my athletes, or I try to coach, because it's a lot more than the physical side of things. But it's, the mental and emotional side of thing. I think it's what's really important. And I think that's what I take pride in, how I coach my athletes, because again, I know there's coaches out there that are probably know a lot more than me, or probably experience a lot more than me, but on the how I can connect with my athletes on the mental and emotional side of things, to keep them motivated and keep things positive. I think that that's something I can offer a lot to my athletes. So that's probably, in like you said, somewhat of a life coach than just a running coach, right?
Absolutely, mate. Yeah. And I've had the opportunity to coach a number of athletes as well, and definitely just not even coach a lot of athletes, just help people out within the community of running. And just, if people come up and say, hey, I've been trying to run, I don't really enjoy it that much, I kind of feel this way or that way, always happy to hand out advice, because it just grows the community. And I mean, geez, if you know something about something and someone can benefit from that, share it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, and a lot of that, is all encompassing with the physical side, the mental side, the emotional side. And can you give an example of how you've gone from just helping someone out on the physical side of things to then manage them through emotional situations as well? Because I think it's probably something that could apply to a lot of people that are out there.
Yeah, definitely. What I hear a lot from my athletes is, they just love reading my emails. And like, I don't really think about that. Like, there's supposedly the way I write my email, it's like upbeat and positive. And for them, like just receiving like once a week, like, just a simple checkup email, they love it, like it kind of like boosts them up, because like, probably because they know me. So the way I start with every athletes is we always have this kind of chat, like for my online clients, we'll have a 30-minute convo just for them to get to know me, just to create somewhat of a relationship or energy. So then we can relate a lot more. So if we do most things via email, they can kind of like know, when I'm writing something, how I would say it. So I have had a client that she took like a 3-month break basically. And then she rewrote to me, is like, "Oh, Matt, can I get back on the program? Like, I miss getting your weekly emails, just checking on me and your positive attitude." And that's basically a lady, like I spoke to her 30 minutes, like the first time, and then everything was via email, but she kind of missed that, like, just mentally and emotionally, just to receive that little dose of, I guess, positivity or upbeat, that would sometimes do her whole week, right? So that's just a simple example that, it's not necessarily on the physical side of things or the physical technical aspect of my programming that she was enjoying. It was mostly the energy she was getting through just a simple email. So yeah,
That's rad. That's super interesting as well, because just on paper, if you're like, "Hey, so welcome to Mathieu Doré, I'm your coach, we're going to have a 30-minute conversation," then you're just going to hear from me on email. But I guarantee you it's going to absolutely make your week 100 times better. On paper, if you read that, you'd be like, "Damn, that sounds like a bit of a ripoff," but it obviously works.
Yeah, and I didn't really realize that. But then, like, since I've realized that, like, I just pay more attention of how I write my messages or my emails to certain clients, like, because it does a whole lot for some of them, like, instead of like writing a simple email like, "How was your training this week?" Like, period. Like, can say, "Hey, Deb, how are you? How was your training this week? Hope you had a great week." Like, just that, like, it takes 2 minutes to write like an upbeat, ask them a few questions, but it can make the whole week, instead of like just giving kudos or So now I'm a lot more careful, like, just even with my how do you say that, punctuation, like exclamation mark and that kind of stuff, because it resonates a whole lot to them.
It's
which I've never really realized, but it's a little touch, I guess, that does a whole lot.
It's so rad to hear, because I guess especially, this is a time where people right now in lockdown in so many different parts of the world, it's because of the whole virus situation. A lot of people are probably sending out messages, sending out emails and things like that. And I can't help but feel like that if you applied that strategy to every email, whether it's to a friend, whether it's to a colleague, whether it's to a client, whether it's to someone that you maybe want to eventually get a job with, that's a whole, like, being a lot more aware of how you communicate with the small things. I think, I think it's a really good lesson for people to take away from your experience. Absolutely, man. Because, and so, I'm laughing a little bit because during my research the other day, it was pretty funny. I found this little YouTube clip from Mathieu Doré, from 2012, and it's
sorry.
it's absolutely brilliant, mate. Like, I tell you what, from the look of it, it looks like you put it together yourself. And, you know, technology's come a long way since 2012, but back then you nailed it.
It was actually my cousin that put it together.
Okay. Nice. Well, they did a great job. Okay. I just want to make that clear. I highly recommend anyone to go check that out. But, so mate, you've been in this space a long time, you know, and I believe you started to even do, I guess, coaching and training since, you began to do that when you were 16, hey? Doing volleyball with your brother.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And sometimes I forget about all that. Like, we started coaching 16 years old. We were basically running a whole volleyball clinic community in our small town. So, and we were 16, basically teaching adults, and we had about 50 members that were coming in weekly, and we would just teach them all about volleyball because that was that was basically our passion back in high school. And I also had the opportunity to work in like summer camps, sports summer camps, during those summer months, which was quite nice. So that's basically where my coaching career started. I was 16 years old, which is more than it's basically half of my life now. I've been coaching. That's cool, man. And then I went a little bit more the traditional path, you know, like as a personal trainer. I started that when I was 19 or 20 years old, just in your big commercial gym. Did that. I was just someone that just loved to try different things. So I was doing one-on-one training. I was teaching spinning, and that's spinning like old school back in the days, like basically with the disco ball and, you know, like pump music. And I even thought like step class, you know, those old school step class, like, you know, with like grapevine and V-step and all that. That was me. I was the guy on stage teaching that.
Yes.
So yeah, I was just trying to do a little bit of everything. And I learned quite a bit, you know, doing so and having different experiences like that. Which, because back then I was a runner, but not that much into it. Running was just a way to keep fit for ice hockey, which that was mainly my main background growing up. So yeah, and then I had the opportunity to be kind of like the right-hand man of the guy that was coaching, not coaching, well, the strength conditioning coach for professional ice hockey player, which is like, you know, in Australia, it's probably like for like AFL or rugby league. So I was basically training these guys during their off season. So that was quite cool. I did that for over a year. And then when I was 24 years old, I went business for myself and start working for myself. So that's almost 10 years now, which I often forget how young I was when I went business for myself. It was a big risk, but yeah, I guess it worked out. I'm still here, still doing it. So
yeah. And, you know, to be honest, so I was I was lucky enough to come and do my certificate 4 in fitness and personal training. I came and did some shadowing with you, and I stayed with you for a few days, spent some time on the floor with you and your clients. And, you know, honestly, to this day, I've worked with a lot of you know, I've been around a lot of athletes and professional athletes, a lot of personal trainers, been to a lot of gyms. But in all honesty, the method and the structure you put towards introducing a new athlete, working with an athlete on a program is like legitimately world class. It's simple, like, but it's simple to a degree, but it's very, very encompassing. And your knowledge around everything you do and why you do it is phenomenal. Like you deliver it with like a huge amount of confidence, but a huge amount of belief in what you're delivering. And I think that is it's so evident when you're on the ground and you're working with someone. And I think it just, to hear that you've been in business with yourself since you were 24 and coaching on certain levels since you were 16, like all of that experience shows, man, like 100%. And I think, I've always encouraged people to get in touch with you if they're ever thinking about, diversifying their training or complementing their training, because it's just that you've got a wealth of knowledge, which I think really, really benefits people, and also like runners especially, because runners can get really, really caught up with doing one thing, and that's just running a lot. And, in all honesty, and I think you can shed a lot of light on this, and I'd really welcome your opinion, but there can be a lot healthier ways to have running as part of your lifestyle, which doesn't involve just getting more and more kilometers under your belt. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on that aspect of things?
Yeah, I totally agree. And that all depends on the individual, right? And that's something I try to bring to my coaching quite a bit. It's everyone's different, right? A lot of people, say running high mileage is great. And some other people say running high mileage is not, maybe doing a little bit of strength training is better than running 160K, but it all depends, on the individual again. So, how long have they been running, on their lifestyle? Do they have any kids? Are they working full time? Do they enjoy running, or they enjoy cross training as well? So I don't think there's a magic formula for everyone. Like I'm not against, high mileage, or I'm not against a lot of cross training. I think there's one specific formula for everyone. And as a coach, it's my job to try and find what's best for them, basically. So that's my thought. So there is athletes that, if they want to run their best marathon, they probably need to run quite a bit. But if it becomes unhealthy, I'll probably, say to them like, nah, if you're always getting injured, you're not, breaking any PBs, like let's try something else, right? So for me, it's all about balance. It's about switching things up. It's about trying different things. Because I found what works for myself. I'm not a high mileage kind of guy compared to some guys I race against. What works for me and what I enjoy is, as we discussed a little bit before we started, is just being out there. That's what floats my boat, and that's how I can stay consistent and enjoy my training, is just by doing different things. Like I rather, train 20 hours a week, but maybe just do 8 hours of running, and the rest I'll do some strength training, I'll do some mountain biking, I'll do some paddling, and that will get me pretty fit and be able to compete against some guys that probably runs 12, 14 hours a week, right? So, I think it's to find that magic formula for that individual, right?
Okay, yeah. And so how do you resonate with your knowledge and your experience in health and fitness? How do you resonate with the statement of no pain, no gain?
Not a big fan. Like, I think there's a certain place for that, but you don't always have to be hurting to be gaining, right? I think you can have hard days, and your hard days, you can push it, but never to a point to always puke, when you do a track workout. Like I was a victim of it, like doing track in high school, every workout I would puke. Like same thing in university when I ran cross country and indoor track, man, I would push myself until I puke every time. But then it's later, now after having so many years of experience, it's not the best way to go, in my opinion. Yeah, you can't empty the tank, day after day or even week after week. Like, it's just not sustainable. And to a certain degree, you're not going to enjoy yourself anymore. So, empty the tank on race day, but in training, yeah, keep some in the tank. Some days take it easy, go for a walk, run with mates. Like, it has to be enjoyable. Certainly if you're not doing it as a professional, like, if it's enjoyable, you'll be consistent and you'll have results. Like, it's not rocket science.
Do you have to pull up a lot of your clients in that space of advice?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I found a lot of my clients, they don't have a problem because, like, they're committed to a race. So they're willing to put in the work. So their motivation is there. So that's the beauty of my work. I don't have to motivate them that much compared to in the past. I've worked, and nothing against that. I really enjoy that. I've worked more with fat loss client, where for them it was just to get them to exercise. I had to motivate them. But for marathon runners or endurance athletes, they're pretty self-motivated, but sometimes a bit too much. So it's to give them the right tools to tell them, okay, that's an easy day. Like, it has to feel like so, right? And I found so many now with all the programs and datas and apps, you can really see, if they're working too hard or not with their heart rate monitor or even pacing. If I told them, okay, today you're going to do 8K at easy pace, which should be, I always give them a range because, it depends how you feel today. But if it was supposed to be in between 5:30 and 6 minutes and they ran like at 4:55, I'm like, ugh, mate, like that's not the purpose of this session. Like, today it's about recovery. It's about, being active, but recovering from yesterday's session or getting ready for tomorrow. So that happens so often, that my athletes go too hard on their easy days.
Yeah. It's something I've discussed a lot with a lot of other coaches, especially in the running space. And you know what? I also find it very common when I'm speaking to people for, say people that are like trying to get into running, like really in the beginning stages of, like, I love getting outside. I really want to get into running because it's, for the most part, it's very simple. You literally, most places get out your front door. Obviously, things are a little bit different in this time we're experiencing right now. But I think it's something that a lot of people really do actually want to get into, but they really struggle with how it feels initially. And I think from my experience and a lot of other people I've spoken to, it's the general advice that gets given to people that are just starting out running is like, just take it a bit easier, just go a bit slower, like.
Yeah, I totally agree. And yeah, for the beginners, like, sometimes like, oh, I can't even run 5 minutes. I'm like, well, you're probably running too fast. Like, I believe that, not everyone, but most people could run 20 minutes without stopping if they would just take it easier. But yeah, and that's why I think at the beginning, a lot of people get discouraged about running. It's just they trying to go too hard, too fast. And yeah, it's discouraging because it seems so hard, but it's just about patience, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really glad you brought up the word patience and also the ability to kind of understand when you need to, limit yourself for like health reasons and things like that. And obviously, like, injury is a big thing. A lot of people succumb to injury, and I think a lot of that has to do with just the ability to understand when you really need to back off and you need to give yourself a little bit more rest and things like that. What's your opinion on rest and having rest days? Because you're a runner.
Yeah.
You've run races 240 kilometers in distance. I mean, you must run all the time. Like, do you ever stop running?
Yeah. No, I'm a big fan of rest days. I usually take a whole day off running, and I enjoy it. I really enjoy it, and that's even in my high mileage week. And high mileage for me, it's not uh, as high as some other um, runners. I'll take a full day off running, and then I'll just get on the bike or do strength training. I just love giving myself and my athletes just that break from that. So um so rest, yeah, it's almost more important than your hard weeks, because that's when you soak in your training. That's when your body adapts and repair himself to be able to do another big week. So I'm a massive fan. Like, even for some of my athletes, most time when they do a big race, certainly their A race, I'm like, listen, I don't want to hear from you for the next 2 weeks. Just freaking chill, do whatever you feel like, do whatever feels right, get on the bike or go run if you want, but no structured program, like just chill out. And then usually I get in touch with them after those 2 weeks, and then we talk about, okay, what's next? Because you got to rest the mind, you got to rest your emotion, you got to soak in what just happened, if it was positive or negative, before getting right back into it. I'm a big believer in that, because I found from experience, if you never stop, you're not gonna last, right? So you just gotta, certainly after those big efforts, just chill out, enjoy. Like, if you had a good race, just enjoy it for a couple weeks, right? So yeah, big fan of rest days. But those rest days, not like sitting on the couch, all days. It's basically like, do different things, do your yard work, stay active, but nothing too intense. Like, go for a walk with your dogs. Like, that's a rest day, right? Depending on what's your ability and what's your intensity, through a regular week.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's all relative to the individual again, and
definitely.
it's all comparative to what they are used to and what they, I guess, like what they can handle to a certain extent.
Yeah. Like, I'm a big believer, like, consistency is key, right? So if you can do a little something every day, you'll improve. So um, I have a hard time to do just a whole lot of nothing, like, in one day, like a whole rest day, like that. Like, for me, there should always be a purpose within your day. So if your rest day it's to get on the foam roller for 20 minutes, well, that's cool, man. Like, you're improving, right? So that's a rest day. Like, it's not, and that's what people think, like, oh, I don't want a rest day because I won't improve. No, like, you got to let your athletes know, or you got to know, okay, even that rest day, uh, what is it going to do, or how it's going to make you better, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So definitely, I guess in some ways the word rest can be misleading, and
Yeah.
so yeah, you can often feel a little bit worse after having a complete day off, and you start to move around again, and your joints are stiffened up and whatnot, and it takes a little bit longer in a warm up, for instance, to kind of get moving again and feel like you're back to what you're used to.
Exactly. And sometime, like, if you were sick or forced to take a complete rest day, take it. It's not because you're lazy, it's because your body needs it. So that's totally fine sometime. Like, I came back from Bali and I had the flu, so I didn't do anything for like 3 days, right? But I didn't get down to myself. I'm like, man, that's what my body needs. It was probably on a lot of stress, coming back from holidays. I did a big race beginning of the year. So that's what it needs. So I was not getting frustrated at myself because I couldn't train. I was actually enjoying it. I'm like, this is quite nice. That's what my body needs. I'll just watch, 5 episodes of Netflix today. And I was embracing it. Right.
Yeah.
So, man, if your body got to that point or you deserve it, embrace it. Right. That's totally fine.
Yeah. And I think, I think that circles back around to that whole notion of no pain, no gain. You could substitute pain with a different word, like no movement, no gain. Or
Yes.
I think a lot of people can get caught up in that. And and it kind of dictates their life as opposed to the kind of logic surrounding health, fitness, diets, everything, it's really captivated a lot of people, and it's really kind of made them believe against the hard science of what stress plus rest equals growth is, essentially.
Yep. Exactly. It's
So,
it's a fine formula, and it's different for everyone. There's no, like I said before, there's no magic formula for everyone. So it's that's what makes coaching quite interesting, and that's why getting to know your athletes is so important, because their lifestyle will dictate what the magic formula of rest and effort, right? So if they got 4 kids, they work full time, they only sleep 4 hours a night, like, man, like, you can't give them too much volume or intensity, because there always be probably overtraining. And sometimes some people will say, well, they're only training 3 or 4 hours a week, but for them, that's all they can manage physically. That's all the stress they can manage. So maybe, it's a lot better. Less is more sometimes for these type of people.
yeah. So, how do you explain the concept of stress? Because stress is not just a physical thing, right?
Yeah. So for me, from my own experience, like, because for me, I know racing is like testing yourself, right? So I've had my best races personally when everything else in my life was quite stable. So which that means my stress level from everything in my life was very low, right? So if you got somewhat of a stability, or you feel pretty stable within, every other aspect beside training and racing in your life, your stress level should be fairly low. But I had my worst races most of the time when, things weren't great, in terms of work or relationships and this and that. And so because my stress level was so high, and then putting a high load of training, that's where I would get sick or injured and all that kind of stuff. So I always say, to have the best race of your life, or to be able to go through a big block of training, everything in your life should have somewhat of great stability, right?
So let's take that and let's zoom in, and let's zoom in on what happened at Alpine Challenge, which is you took on the 100K or the 100 miler.
So I was trying to do the 100 mile.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing 100-mile course through the Victorian Alps. You get to do like basically a huge circle, with a couple of crossovers. 100 miles, 161K. Get to top out at a couple of the peaks. You get to top out at Mount Bogong, Mount Feathertop, get up around Mount Hotham. So in taking what you just said about stress and everything else balancing in life, like, you went up and you tried to do the 100 miler at Alpine Challenge, but you had to drop out eventually, didn't you?
Yeah, I dropped out 100 Ks in.
So what was that, down at Harrietville?
Well, because of the fires, they changed the course. So it was at Hotham, at the top of Hotham. Yeah, so because they had a little bit,
So if you reflect on that, what
Yep.
what are the things that you would have changed to give yourself a better chance of doing the full course and successfully completing it?
Yeah. So yeah, I had quite a bit of time to reflect on that now because that was a few months ago. I think, to be honest, um, last year I should have done something shorter, because like I was I got back to Australia. It was a year of like fighting with immigration, trying to get back because obviously my wife was here and we were doing long distance. So I went through a lot of stress for a couple years, living in my parents' basement, and then even before that, in my previous relationship. So it was a lot of stress, and then I felt coming back to Australia, getting settled, in the new environment, a new community, everything is new. And as you know, you've moved, here and there as well. Like, it's always hard to get settled in a new place, and I'm quite social, so I probably get settled pretty fast compared to the norm. But it's still a lot of stress, moving somewhere the only person basically, or know really well, is your it was my wife. So but I felt like I'm like, man, I want to do something big at the end of the year, just to kind of like have a drive and have a focus and all that. But I think it was just too soon, to be honest, because I had quite a good lead up. My lead up was actually, nothing's perfect, but it was very close to perfect. I had, a great 50K race at Peaks and Trails. I had a great multi-sport race. I did the Four Peaks a few weeks before, and ran my best times in pretty much all the within all the days. So I was pretty happy of where I was at, but I didn't realize probably my body was still under a lot of stress. Because your central nervous system just takes so much time to recover from like highly stress events, not just physically, but just emotionally. So I think I was just not quite mentally and emotionally prepared to go through, yeah, uh, a big event like that. So, because what happened on the day, felt pretty good. Ran, the first 60K really, really well. And then it got pretty hot. And as a Canadian, I don't deal well with the heat. And then going up Feathertop, I really, really felt it. And just trying to push on for, 6, 7 hours of not being able to put anything down because my digestive system just got shot. And that's why I kind of like call it quits, maybe 85Ks in. But that's where my wife was meeting me at pole 333 to run that section with me from pole 333 to Autumn. I think that section is about 15K. And I was pretty much done at that point, but I'm like, what's 15K, beautiful walk, sunset, with my wife, just me and her. I'm like, I'll try to push on for another few Ks with her and at least trying to enjoy, that moment with her. And that's basically what we did. And then call it quits at Autumn. So, I think it was just a mixed up of the whole year, right? That I think I was not quite ready for something that big or stressful on my body.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for being so open about that, man, because
No worries.
I think a lot of people can learn from that. We all have, unless you're, some robot, we all have emotions. We all have mental stress. And then, there's always this real desire to want to tick a big item off. Like, it might even for some people just be a 5K. It might be a 10K, half marathon. It doesn't matter what the distance is, because stress is all relative to the individual. But Yeah, it's amazing that even someone who has been a lifelong athlete can still absorb that kind of a stress and not be able to be 100% resilient to it. And I think it's totally important to put that out there, because you've had incredible success as an athlete, regardless of having a race turn south on you. And I think it's just needs to be said that you can be really fit and really up to it physically, be running well, or whatever sport it is that you do, but there is still a huge respect that needs to be given to your emotional state, your mental state, and how that all comes into play, because
Mm-hmm.
it's all part of the system. It's all part of the same system. It's all part of being human, really.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. Yep.
So
Yeah. Yep. Go on.
yeah, no, I just wanted to touch on something else, and that was we spoke a little bit about patience before, and I'm really interested to understand. You started your life as an athlete a long time ago, and you've learned a lot. You've been through a lot. I find it really, really interesting that you went from running a marathon to running 100 miles, and I think it's interesting because I don't know if you would, maybe you would. I don't know if you would recommend that for any of your athletes these days, but you definitely went and did that. And I want to know, I want to know about that experience, but I also want to know how you've changed, like what you learned in from then to now, and how you help people out with that with that knowledge.
Yeah, yeah.
Big step up, Matty. You took it in your stride.
Yeah, I would not recommend that to anyone. Not at all. Not at all. But yeah, that did happen. So I ran my first marathon. What was it? 2010 in Montreal. I think that was in September. And then the following year, I did a 100-miler in Vermont in May. So yeah, it was. And like I basically didn't do anything in between that. So it was quite a while. I don't know. At that point in my life, how old would I have been? That was almost 10 years ago now. So I was about 23, 24, and I was still like, at that point, I was still working in bars and working part-time as a strength conditioning coach. So I was kind of like living carefree still. Like just thinking about it, training for that I was like, yeah, I don't know how I would do it, but I was eating like crap, like your typical 23, 24 bachelor guy, partying basically every Friday, Saturday, sometime Thursday and Sunday. I would like get home around 3 a.m., get up at 6 a.m., go do like a 40, 50K long run, and then fuel on, whatever junk food, like frozen pizza or craft dinner. Like I was just getting it done. And like I was running like maybe 100 miles plus a week, like I was just, I don't know how I did it. And so I put in the training, like, and that's like, I'm tapping my back for that. Like, it's not like I ran a marathon and then like just signed up to 100-miler and trying to go do it. Like I've put in some solid training leading up to it. But yeah, I didn't have a whole lot of clue what I was doing, to be honest. It was totally carefree. I was just running a lot of Ks. And sometimes I would run, what was it? Saturday, I would run like my biggest weekend, I think was Saturday, I ran 50K, and then the Sunday I ran 70K. And I probably drank like 14 beers in between that. You know what I mean? Like, it was ridiculous thinking back. Like, I don't know how I survived all that.
You learned a good bit from that, I assume.
Oh yeah. So I got it done, and I got the race done, and I did all right. Considering all that. But then it's after that, I did another race like 2 or 3 months later. I did Canadian Debt Race, and got it done, but had some stomach issue. I had no clue what I was doing still. Back in the days, I was just fueling on Gatorade and yeah, basic things. So 45 Ks in, like had some stomach cramps and all that kind of stuff. Basically lay down for 2 or 3 hours on the grass and got back up and finished the race. So at that point I was like, oh man, like I'm doing all right at this stuff. And then 2 or 3 months after that, I tried to do another 100 miler. That's like all within like 4 months.
Dude.
And
Ouch.
that 100 miler, basically 144 Ks in, I got so dehydrated. I think that's what happened. Then my feet got swollen so bad. And like to a point, like I couldn't even wear my own shoes. So my dad was crewing me. He gave me his running shoes because he was a size bigger. But then it was to a point, about 15, 16 Ks to go. I couldn't even stand on my own feet. So I had to call it quits. And then it was at that moment, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm not, unbreakable. I'm not Superman. Like I got to do things a little smarter, right?
Wow.
So it was at that point that I started doing a little bit more research, and I got a coach, and then be a little bit more sensible about how to approach things, and how to approach races, and how to train properly and fuel properly and rest properly, and so but that was basically my introduction to ultra running.
Wow, man, that is incredible. Even because I think you signed up to Ultra Trail Mont Blanc in 2012. Was that right?
Yeah, 2013. Yeah,
2013. So and then you went out there to do that, and I remember you telling me this story quite a while ago, actually. But it really kind of moved me in a way. I was like, "Whoa, you're a real compassionate person when it comes to the people that you care about." Because what happened at that race was something that was, it was the card that you got dealt, but you chose to deal with it the way you did, and I think that speaks volumes for the person you are. Could you give us a recap of what happened in the event that year?
Yeah, of course. So UTMB Ultra Trails Mont Blanc was kind of like, for me it was the pinnacle. I started running ultra in 2011, and I saw that race. I'm like, man, I got to do that. So got enough points to apply. Back then it was not as popular, so I got in the first year I applied. So during that year, my dad got struck by cancer, so he was basically starting treatments that year. So blood cancer, and also one of my best buddy, he was on remission from cancer. He had like testicle cancer, and then spread to his abdomen, and then he had actually 3 brain tumors. So he had like 5 brain surgeries to get the tumors removed. So and I was pretty much with him throughout all that time when he went through all that stuff. But for me, this guy was the strongest dude I know, like what he went through and all that. So when I got into UTMB, I'm like, man, you got to come to the race. Like, you got to be my support crew, and I want you to come and live that experience with me and all that kind of stuff. So, because he thought I was somewhat inspiring by doing all those crazy races and all that. Because 10 years ago, it was not as popular, I guess. So for him, it was like unhuman to do 100 miles and all that. So I kind of like inspire him through that time, or to make his comeback, to be healthy and stronger. So because I was his strength training coach, that's basically how we met. So for him to come to UTMB, it was a must. So he came, and so we got to UTMB. I got there pretty fit, I had some big expectation. I had a coach training me for that, and training a little bit smarter than my introduction to ultra running. But then basically 24 hours before the race, because you start at around 4 or 5 p.m. My mate came into the hotel room, and I was just relaxing, and like his eyes were like rolled in, and he kind of like couldn't even speak, and I'm like, wow, what is going on? And then it kind of clicked. He was having a seizure, so I had to like pin him down, and because he was standing, and I didn't want him to fall or anything, so just pinned him down, and we went on the bed, and he had a pretty big seizure, and I'm like, because when they discovered he had brain tumors, he had a seizure, and that's how they discover his cancer kind of spread to his brain. So as soon as he had his seizure, I'm like, oh man, it's back. And so then we called, well, it's not 911 in France, I don't know what it is, but we called the ambulance, and we went to he had another seizure in the ambulance, because I rode with them to the closest hospital, and then got to the hospital, got another seizure there. So he was pretty much out of it. So obviously I had to take care of him through the whole night, that whole evening, to see what was going on, and set up some tests for him, and trying to connect with his family as well to let them know what was going on. But then around, I think, 1 a.m., they told me, is like, Matt, you're not, technically, you can't stay here in the hospital. I'm like, wow, I don't know, like, what am I supposed to do? It's like, well, we'll try and call you a cab. So there was no cab, because it was quite late, and it's quite a small town where the hospital was. So I'm like, man, like, what do I do? Like, I can't even call a cab to go back to my hotel room. So I ran from the hospital to the closest hotels, and then trying to book an hotel room close to the hospital, but everything was closed. So then I came back to the hospital and sneaked to his room and just lay on the ground, hoping the nurse wouldn't see me. And obviously she caught me. And finally they got a cab for me. So I got a cab back to my hotel room. And to be honest, that was probably, I was like, man, like, for me, I thought my buddy was like, his cancer was back. So it was quite stressful. So got to the hotel, barely slept, then got a little bit of breakfast for him at the closest bakery, and then took another cab back. And then we kind of came back. I had to deal with the nurse and doctors till about 2 p.m. And then at 2, my mate was like, man, like, I want you to go race anyways. I'm like, nah, there's no way, like, I leave you here. Like, this, for me, like, UTMB was like not even on my mind anymore. He's like, nah, I would feel so bad if you don't get to experience and all that. I'm like, ah. So I took a cab back. It was €90 every time I took the freaking cab. But it is what it is. So I took a cab back, then managed to have a drop bag, because now I had no more crew, because he was at the hospital. And I told myself I would just run through the night from basically 4 to 4, and just at least do what he said, to at least get to live the experience. So I got to Courmayeur, and then basically came back to the hospital, and to be with him. So but that was probably one of the toughest day of my life, to be honest. Like, knowing my dad was going through hard stuff, and then my best mate thinking his cancer was back. So it was a hard day, but it all came good at the end. It was just basically from scar tissue in his brain, and being in the high altitude, and a little bit dehydrated. That's why he had the seizure. But we didn't know that, until he got back to Canada. So let's say the next 2 weeks, we just kind of like basically travel like, it was probably the last couple of weeks for him. So we went to Spain and Germany and a little bit of Switzerland, so a little bit south of France. So yeah, it was actually quite nice.
Wow, man. Yeah, that is incredible to go through. And then yeah, I know, of course it's a race and you would forego that, no problem. That's just a given. But to kind of do that in honor of your friend's request to go and enjoy it as much as you can. It's like, yeah, I mean, that's stepping up to the plate and getting out there. That's pretty, that's pretty inspiring to hear. And he's pretty good now. Like, what's his situation?
Yeah, he's doing really good. That was 10 years ago. So now he's back pretty healthy, put the weight back on. Never had any problem with his cancer coming back. He has diabetes. That's kind of like something that came a few years after, probably by going like through so many chemo and radiation and all that. So he has to deal pretty closely with diabetes. But yeah, he's a business owner and yeah, very successful. So he's doing amazing. And yeah, but that will be a day to remember. And I came back from it, being a lot stronger, and made me realize that a lot of things and what's important in life. That nothing beats friends and family. For me, that's what's important. Yeah, you can put so much effort into a race and this and that, but that's a passion. There's nothing more important, than your closest friends or your family.
Yeah, man, it's very well said. Yeah, 100%. And I think, that really does shine through with the person that you are, and, you've become over your time. I think, and a lot of credit goes to yourself for standing by someone like that. And I think, like you were saying, there's a lot that goes into being a personal trainer, a strength and conditioning coach, and then ultimately like somewhat of a life coach. And I think, just to touch on it again, man, is like you're not just great at that from a technical point of view with your understanding of movement and kinetics and things like that, but you're also just a legit good lad. And it's it's one of the best things about it is that, like, I'm stoked to see you now back in the country that you want to be in, and back with back in a space that you're stoked on, because it was a bit of a turbulent time there when it was like, you look at something on Facebook and it's like Matty's out of the country, like he's gone, the visa done. Like, it was just like, what? Are you serious? And now, yeah, to see you work through that and now be back here and putting your good energy into the community that's here, it's just like, there's no better person to have in that space, and it's totally rad. So yeah, stoked to have you back on this side of the world. And yeah, man, you're a very good person to call upon when there is when there's some knowledge and some guidance that is needed in this sport, and also life, for sure. So yeah, man, just shout out to you. So
thanks, man.
Anytime, mate. So dude, just we're going to wrap it up here, and again, I thank you for your time. I just want to ask you, are there any resources that you refer to often? I think it's word of mouth about resources and things you use in your day-to-day life as a person and as a professional, I think can be a really, really good way to learn about other resources out there that may help people out. So are there any resources that you commonly refer back to and you use throughout your profession?
Yeah, like, I do like read a lot of blogs and, follow a lot of people on social media that, I love what they do. I think it's important, as as a coach on the professional side of things to have your own craft, but there's no problem of taking bits and bits from other professional. Like, I don't think you have to reinvent the wheels all the time. But if you think someone's doing something very well, like, why not take something out of their book or a page out of their book? So there's a few coaches I always look up to, either it's on the technical side of things or on the mental side of things. I'm always basically reading their stuff or following their journey to see how they do things. And just to name a few, there's one, Mike Boyle, as a strength conditioning coach. I think he's one of the best. He's a real pioneer in our type of work. And there's another guy, his name is Brett. He's American, and he's more about the art of coaching, so more on the technical side of coaching, like how you should approach your athletes and how you should communicate with your athletes, which I think he's a real guru in that department. Because I think, I probably, when you came coaching with me, it's coaching, the technical side of thing is one thing, but more than I always say, more than 50% is how you can create a relationship with your athletes. It's even more important. And I think that guy Brett, he wrote a lot of stuff in his book, The Art of Coaching, that is very, very good. So that he's kind of like someone I look up to quite a bit.
What do you have his last name? Or does that escape you?
Yes, I can probably.
We can write that down. We can get a link to that and
but his Instagram is like coach_Brett B. Yeah,
and so Mike, Brett, anyone else that you refer back to?
So there's other guys like on the more technical side of things. Like, I always said, like, I want to do. He gives like seminars. His name is Luke. He's actually in Sydney. Luke Edgel. His company is Edge Performance. I believe he's probably one of the best in training athletes in Australia. And then just following him on social media, I'm a big fan of him. He's just real, and you could see, like, sometime he trolls stories, training his athletes, and he laughs with them. He just seems to have a great relationship with most of his athletes, and he trains mostly professional athletes, but he seems like he's very good at what he does, but he keeps it fun as well. So I'm a big fan of Luke, and I'm hoping one day I can do, because he gives a whole course now, like throughout 8 weeks or 8 weekends, something like that. And for the last couple of years, I've really been wanting to do it if timing is good. So he's another one that, really grasped my attention.
Rad, man. Well, thanks for sharing those. And
no worries.
As always, like, it's a pleasure to chat, and 100%. I hope that our conversation has been able to spur on some other conversation around the world. And if not that, then I hope you get a couple more people looking into the work that you do. And I think the one takeaway, which really actually came from the very beginning of the conversation, would be to just be yourself, because be yourself, and make sure that you pay a little bit extra attention to those emails or those messages you send someone, because a little bit of positivity in any plain old email can make the world a difference. Hey,
I totally agree. All
right, Matty, Mathieu. I hope we get to catch up in person again soon, man. I hope that this whole situation the world is facing right now hasn't had too much of a detrimental effect to what you do. I hope you're still able to communicate and help people out in the space that you do. And I hope the world learns from it and everything kind of returns back to a positive level soon, man. Yeah.
I'm sure it will. It gives me, I'm not as busy, but it gives me the opportunity to focus on different things, which is nice.
What's next then? What's on your to-do list that gets no attention because you're too busy?
Yeah, I'm basically like rebranding my company because I got busy so quick, being an Aubrey, or a lot quicker than I expected. With a lot of more athletes came in than I expected. I didn't really have the chance to work on simple stuff like your logo, your templates, and all that kind of stuff. So it was made pretty quickly. But now, like, I got time to do all that stuff. So it's just gonna make my company look a little bit better when things get back to normal, which is something I always put off. Because delivering programs to my client or interacting with my clients, for me, it's a lot more important than branding. But yeah, right now it's something I can work on, and that's only going to make my company better, in the future. So that's a big plus.
Nice, man. And what are you going to call it? Because you had the garage back when you were down this part of the world, but are you going to name it something different? Like, what's it going to be? What's it going to look like?
To be honest, I'm still thinking about that because, like, a lot of people use their name, but my name is so hard to say. It's not as catchy for being in Australia.
I like it. I mean, I like it. I think people will catch on once you.
Yeah, so we'll see. Right now, like, I'm playing with logos, different like Doré coaching or stuff like that. But yeah, we'll see. I'm playing with different colors, so it's still all up in the air right now, but yeah, we'll soon find out, hopefully.
Yeah. And I mean, cool. Well, I look forward to checking that out. That's got me excited. I hope you have some good success there. But in the meantime, you're just purely on social media at the moment, Facebook and Instagram, right? That's the go-to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no website. That's probably something I'll be working on as well. But yeah, mostly Instagram and Facebook.
Cool, man. Well, yeah, thanks again, dude. I look forward to catching up with you again pretty soon, man.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Another conversation with Stokely and a conversation with the great Mathieu Doré. I think I'm getting that right. I hope you can take something from that conversation. I really enjoyed it. I got a lot out of chatting with Matty, as I always do. He's a great person. His knowledge on the technicality of getting better at what you do in terms of movement is exceptional. He knows a lot, he's got great energy, and he's a really, really good person to have in the community that is the world. So if you want to reach out to Matt, I'll put some links in the show notes so you can find out where to find him on the social media platforms, and soon enough he'll have that website cranking, and hopefully you can get in touch with him and learn some more. So thanks again for listening. I hope this sparks a conversation within your life. That's what it's all about, Stokely. Ensuring we continue to connect, listen, learn, and evolve through the art of conversation. Keep well out there and enjoy the rest of your day.